realize you were the backup child. I came home from college for Thanksgiving and found a 12-year-old girl sleeping in my bed. My cousin Kira had moved in while I was gone, and Mom acted like it was the most normal thing in the world. She just stood there in my doorway and said, "She lives here now," like my room hadn't been mine for 18 years. All my trophies were gone, and they'd replaced my valedictorian certificate with her finger paintings. I'd only been gone 2 months, and somehow they'd managed to erase my entire childhood from that room. The laptop I'd begged for sophomore year that we couldn't afford was sitting on her desk, and she was enrolled in the private school they'd told me cost more than college tuition. Christmas morning absolutely destroyed me because I sat there watching her open 17 presents while I held a single envelope with an unsigned Target gift card inside. But the moment I truly understood where I stood was when they drove 14 hours to watch her say one line as tree number 4 in her school play. Because when I'd made National Honor Society the year before, they said 45 minutes was too far to drive. They started posting about our daughter on Facebook, and she wasn't their niece anymore, she was their daughter. They missed my college graduation completely because Kira had a science fair that same day, and apparently her participation ribbon for growing plants with music was more important than their actual daughter graduating. They had that ribbon professionally framed and hung it in the living room, which cost more than my graduation dinner at Applebee's where they pulled out a coupon when the check came. The betrayal that really broke something inside me happened when they refinanced the house for Kira's college fund instead of helping with my student loans like I'd begged them to do. They put $200,000 aside for a girl who'd lived with them 5 years while I owed $67,000 after being their daughter for 22 years, and all they could say was helping me was too risky. That December I got a text that made me laugh and cry at the same time because they couldn't make it home for Christmas since they were taking Kira skiing in Aspen. I was literally selling plasma twice a week just to buy groceries and pay rent, and they were posting her ski videos while I sat in my freezing apartment wearing 3 sweaters because I couldn't afford to turn on the heat. When I sent my wedding invitation 6 months in advance, Mom texted back 2 words that told me everything I needed to know about where I ranked in their lives. "We'll try." They showed up to my wedding during the father-daughter dance when I was already dancing with Barb, my mentor, because Dad was still in the parking lot trying to find a better spot. They'd driven Kira 3 states away for her college interview that morning, and it ran long, so they missed my ceremony completely. The photographer actually caught Dad in the background of my vows because he was on his phone booking Kira's freshman orientation hotel while I was saying I do. They left before anyone even cut the cake because Kira needed to practice her interview answers in the car, and I just stood there watching my wedding cake sit there untouched by my own parents. When Kira graduated high school though, they rented an entire country club and hired a party planner who commissioned a custom ice sculpture of her face, and I'm not even joking about that last part. When I won Teacher of the Year for my district, Facebook sent them a notification suggesting they congratulate me, but they didn't even click the like button. When Kira got a participation trophy in debate, they bought actual billboard space that said, "Proud of our daughter," and I had to drive past it every single day for a month on my way to work. She wasn't even their daughter, but they put her face on a billboard, while their real daughter had become so invisible to them that they couldn't even click like on my biggest achievement. The call came last Tuesday at 10 p.m., and my stomach immediately dropped because Dad never called that late unless something terrible had happened. He said, "We need to discuss our future," and even though they were only 64 and perfectly healthy, I knew exactly where this conversation was heading. They told me Kira got into Oxford for her master's degree and would be gone for at least 2 years, then asked me to move back home to the garage apartment they'd prepared for me. Not the main house where I grew up, but the garage, because they needed someone to handle their groceries, drive them to appointments, manage their medications, maintain the house, and pay all their bills, basically becoming their full-time unpaid caretaker. Mom actually said, "Paul can find construction work here," even though Paul ran an engineering firm with 40 employees, but they'd never bothered to learn what my husband did for a living. They knew everything about Kira's boyfriend, including his middle name and his favorite coffee order and which hand he wrote with, but they thought my husband worked construction. Dad explained that Kira would need her room when she visited from Oxford, so I'd understand why I had to live in the garage, and I understood perfectly that I was nothing more than the spare tire they kept in the trunk and only remembered when the real one went flat. I said no, and they lost it completely. 6 months later, they followed Kira to London, but she wouldn't let them stay.